The following morning, Buckingham Palace was alive with quiet activity. Thomas arrived early as usual, his uniform crisp and his posture straight. He had learned much from the Queen's lessons on observation, patience, and kindness. Today, however, the palace seemed different. There was a subtle sense of anticipation in the air, as if something unusual was about to happen. As Thomas stood in formation, polishing his boots and adjusting his hat, a young messenger hurried toward him. The messenger looked nervous but determined, clutching a folded letter tightly in his hands. He handed it to Thomas and said, "This is for the Queen, sir. She asked that it be delivered immediately." Thomas took the letter carefully. The seal was unusual, with a symbol Thomas had never seen before. He straightened, understanding the importance of handling royal messages with care. He delivered it to the Queen's aide, who opened it carefully and read aloud. The message was from an unknown sender, requesting a private audience with the Queen regarding an urgent matter. The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly as she read the message. She then turned to Thomas. "Thomas, I would like you to assist me today. This message is unusual, and I need someone I can trust by my side. Are you prepared?" Thomas felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He straightened fully and replied, "Yes, Your Majesty. I will be ready." The Queen smiled faintly, her expression calm yet serious. She gathered a small group of aides and left the courtyard, with Thomas walking closely behind her. They moved through the palace halls, their footsteps quiet but purposeful. The Queen's demeanor was thoughtful, as if she was considering the meaning of the message and the best way to respond. They entered a private room in the palace, a space reserved for confidential meetings. The room was warm and elegantly decorated, with tall windows that allowed sunlight to fill the space. On a small table lay the message, carefully unfolded, and a single candle flickered nearby. The Queen turned to Thomas. "I want you to observe carefully today. Pay attention to everything around you and to everyone we meet. There may be details that are easy to miss, but very important." Thomas nodded. He had learned from the previous days that observation and thoughtfulness were just as important as courage. He understood that his role today was not only to assist the Queen, but also to notice details that could be crucial. Shortly after, a young man entered the room. He was well-dressed but seemed nervous. His eyes darted around the room and his hands fidgeted slightly. He bowed politely before the Queen and said, "Your Majesty, I bring news of a concern regarding the gardens. I believe something unusual has been happening and it may affect the safety of the palace grounds." The Queen listened attentively, her eyes focused and calm. Thomas observed the young man closely. He noticed the way the man's eyes lingered on the small statue near the window, and the way he hesitated when mentioning certain areas of the garden. Thomas realized that the young man might be nervous not because of the Queen, but because he was worried about being believed or understood. "Please, sit down," the Queen said kindly. "Tell us everything you have observed and do not worry about small details." "Every detail is important." The young man sat and began to explain. He spoke about subtle signs he had noticed in the gardens, footprints in the morning dew, a small gate left slightly open, and flowers that had been disturbed overnight. He explained that these small details might suggest that someone had entered the garden without permission. Thomas listened carefully. He noted the footprints, the gate, and the disturbed flowers in his mind. He understood that while each sign was small on its own, together they told a story. The Queen and her aides asked questions and the young man responded patiently, pointing out exactly what he had seen. After a while, the Queen turned to Thomas. "Thomas, I want you to take a closer look at the gardens and see if you can find any other signs. Use everything you have learned about observation and attention to detail. Do not overlook anything, no matter how small it may seem." Thomas nodded confidently. He knew this was his chance to apply all the lessons he had learned. He followed the young man to the gardens, moving slowly and carefully, scanning every corner and examining every detail. He noticed footprints in the soft soil near the fountain, a small branch broken near a hedge, and a piece of cloth caught on a bush. Each detail added to the story of the unusual activity in the gardens. He also noticed the birdhouses and small statues that had been slightly moved, signs that someone had been there in the early hours. Thomas carefully documented each observation, knowing that the Queen would want every detail. He returned to the private room with the young man and reported his findings accurately and clearly. The Queen listened attentively, her expression thoughtful. Thomas, you have done very well. Your observations confirm that someone did enter the gardens without permission, but nothing was stolen or damaged. This means the situation is serious but not dangerous. We must remain vigilant. Thomas felt a quiet sense of pride. He realized that his ability to notice small details had helped the Queen understand the situation more clearly. He had turned what could have been a confusing event into a well-documented and understandable scenario. The Queen then asked the young man to remain nearby while she and Thomas walked through the gardens again, this time to inspect each area in person. Thomas led the way carefully, pointing out the footprints, the small gate, and the disturbed flowers. The Queen followed, listening closely to Thomas's observations and asking questions about each detail. As they reached the quiet corner near the old oak tree, Thomas noticed a small hidden path that seemed unusual. The Queen's eyes widened slightly. "You found something important," she said. "This path is not usually visible. It could explain the unusual activity." Thomas nodded and carefully examined the path. He saw that it had been used recently and led to a secluded area of the garden. He pointed this out to the Queen, who smiled approvingly. "Thomas, your attention to detail has been invaluable today. You have helped us understand the situation and take appropriate precautions." After a thorough inspection, the Queen returned to the private room with Thomas. She praised him for his diligence, patience, and careful observation. "Today, Thomas, you have shown that true courage is not only about action, but also about understanding and knowledge. You have learned to see what others might miss and to act thoughtfully. These skills will guide you throughout your life and your service here at the palace." Thomas bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will continue to observe, learn, and act with care." The young man who had first brought the message also thanked Thomas. "I have never seen someone notice so many details so quickly and accurately," he said. "You are a remarkable guide and observer." Thomas felt a quiet warmth inside. He understood that today had been a test of all the lessons he had learned. Courage, observation, patience, and kindness had come together to help the Queen and protect the palace. He realized that every small action, every careful observation, and every respectful gesture could make a difference. As the day ended, Thomas walked through the palace gardens alone. The sunlight was soft and the air was filled with the fragrance of flowers. He thought about the message, the young man, and the lessons he had applied. He understood that being a royal guard was about more than standing tall and following orders. It was about seeing clearly, acting wisely, and helping others with respect and care. By evening, Thomas returned to his quarters with a sense of accomplishment. He reflected on the events of the day and felt confident in his abilities. He knew that future days might bring new challenges, but he was prepared. He had learned that courage, observation, and kindness were the true strengths of a royal guard. And so, Buckingham Palace settled into a quiet night, with Thomas feeling ready for the lessons, surprises, and opportunities that awaited him in the days to come. It was a bright and calm morning in London. The sky was painted with soft shades of orange and pink as the sun slowly rose above the city. Birds chirped happily in the gardens around Buckingham Palace. The palace itself looked grand as always. Its golden gates reflected the sunlight, and the tall windows shimmered like tiny mirrors. Inside the palace, the walls were lined with portraits of kings, queens, and famous members of the royal family from centuries past. Each portrait told a story, and each story reminded everyone of the history and tradition that the palace held. Queen Camilla was walking through the long, elegant hallways of Buckingham Palace. She had a warm smile on her face, and her steps were quiet but confident. She loved these quiet mornings when the palace seemed peaceful, when the staff moved gently through their work, and when she could enjoy a few moments of calm before the busy day began. Her dress was simple yet elegant, a soft blue color that matched her eyes. Her crown sat lightly on her head, more as a symbol of her role than a weight to bear. Outside, the courtyard of the palace was already bustling with activity. Soldiers were standing in perfect formation, their uniforms crisp and clean. Their tall hats stood proudly on their heads, and their boots shined so brightly that they reflected the sunlight. Among the soldiers was a young guard named Thomas. Thomas was new to the palace, but he was determined to serve with honor. He had always dreamed of becoming a royal guard. His uniform was brand new, and he had polished his shoes so carefully that he could see his own reflection in them. His hands were straight at his sides, and his posture was stiff. He wanted to make a good impression because he knew that the Queen could notice even the smallest details. The other soldiers whispered quietly among themselves, curious about the new guard. Some smiled at Thomas, giving him small gestures of encouragement. Thomas tried to smile back, but the nerves in his stomach made it difficult. He had trained for this moment for many months. He had practiced standing still for hours, keeping his eyes forward, and maintaining the perfect posture. But now, with the Queen about to inspect the guards, all his practice seemed like it might not be enough. Finally, Queen Camilla stepped into the courtyard. Her presence was immediately felt by everyone. She walked gracefully, her eyes scanning the rows of guards. She had a calm authority that made even the most experienced soldiers straighten a little more. Thomas felt a shiver run down his spine. He had never been this close to the Queen before. Her eyes were kind, but they were sharp and observant. She noticed every small detail, from the way the soldiers held their heads to the way they held their hands. As the Queen moved closer to Thomas, he felt his heart beat faster. She stopped in front of him and looked directly at his face. Thomas tried to keep his posture perfect, but he could feel the sweat on his forehead. Then, in a voice that was both gentle and commanding, she said, "Sit down, boy." Thomas blinked in surprise. He had never been spoken to like that before, especially not by the Queen herself. His mind raced. Was this a test, a joke, or something else? He remembered his training. He remembered the advice his instructor had given him about staying calm, thinking clearly, and responding respectfully. He took a deep breath, steadying his hands, and prepared to respond. Before he could say anything, the Queen smiled. It was a small smile, but it carried warmth and a little sparkle of amusement. Thomas realized that the Queen was not angry or upset. She was curious, playful, and perhaps testing his character. He remembered what his instructor had also said. Sometimes the royal family wanted to see a soldier's personality, not just his discipline. Thomas then did something he had never done before. He bowed slightly as a sign of respect and said politely, "Your Majesty, may I ask why you would like me to sit?" The Queen's smile grew a little wider. She had not expected him to speak in such a calm and respectful way. She appreciated the courage it took to respond, and the intelligence it showed. She nodded and said, "Sometimes, young man, it is important to rest and observe before action. Let us see what you do." Thomas nodded slowly and carefully sat down on the edge of the courtyard. As he did, he felt a strange sense of relief. He was still nervous, but he also felt proud. Sitting down in front of the Queen was not disrespectful. It was part of a moment that could define him. The other soldiers looked surprised. They had never seen a new guard interact with the Queen in such a calm and confident way. The Queen continued her walk along the line of guards. She watched as each one stood still, their expressions serious. She occasionally asked questions, and each guard responded with careful words. But when she returned to Thomas, she saw something different. He was sitting quietly, alert and paying attention. He was not slouching or looking away. He was fully present in the moment. "Very good," the Queen said softly. "You may rise now." Thomas stood up carefully. He felt a mixture of pride and excitement. The Queen had recognized his behavior, and he had passed her unspoken test. Other soldiers whispered to each other, amazed at how a young, new guard had handled himself so well. Thomas felt a small smile on his face. He realized that bravery and respect were not always about standing perfectly or following every rule. Sometimes they were about thinking, responding, and staying calm even when the situation was unusual. After the inspection, the Queen walked away to attend her meetings, leaving Thomas to return to his duties. But the moment had changed him. He felt more confident than ever. He knew that he had gained the respect of the Queen in a way that many guards spent years trying to achieve. Throughout the rest of the day, Thomas remembered the morning's events. Every time he polished his boots, every time he practiced standing at attention, he thought about the Queen's words and her smile. He realized that being a royal guard was not just about discipline and appearance. It was about understanding, thinking, and sometimes having the courage to respond in unexpected ways. By the evening, Thomas was tired but happy. He walked through the palace gardens, looking at the beautiful flowers and listening to the birds. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the palace. He thought about his family and how proud they would be to hear about his morning. He thought about the lessons he had learned and how he would continue to grow as a guard. Most importantly, he felt ready for whatever challenges the future might bring. And so, The day ended at Buckingham Palace with a young guard who had learned an important lesson. Respect, courage, and intelligence were sometimes more powerful than strict rules. Thomas had faced a surprising moment, and he had responded in a way that left a lasting impression on the Queen and on everyone who witnessed it. The next morning at Buckingham Palace began with the same bright sunlight that had touched the courtyard the day before. Thomas woke up early feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He remembered the Queen's words from yesterday, and they had stayed in his mind. Sitting down when the Queen had told him to had been a small act, but it had left a large impression. Today he hoped to continue showing the Queen that he was not only disciplined, but also thoughtful. Thomas arrived at the courtyard ahead of time. The guards were gathering in their usual formation, and he noticed the older soldiers whispering quietly. They still seemed surprised by how the new guard had handled the Queen the previous day. Some gave him small nods of approval, while others watched with quiet curiosity. Thomas felt a small swell of pride, but reminded himself to stay humble. Being proud was fine, but humility and focus were what truly mattered in the palace. Queen Camilla entered the courtyard with her usual grace. She walked slowly, her eyes moving across the rows of soldiers. Today, she seemed to have a slightly playful sparkle in her eyes. She stopped in front of Thomas as if expecting him to act differently than the others. Thomas stood tall, his shoulders back, his hands resting naturally at his sides. He gave a small bow of respect and waited for her to speak. "Good morning, Thomas," the Queen said, her voice calm and pleasant. "I have a special task for you today. Would you like to hear it?" Thomas's heart leapt. A special task from the Queen was rare for a young guard. He nodded quickly. "Yes, Your Majesty," he said politely, his voice steady but filled with excitement. The Queen smiled. "Today you will not only stand guard. I would like you to guide me through the palace gardens. You must show me the best flowers, the quietest corners, and the places where history seems to linger. But there is a condition. You must do it with care and observation. You must notice everything around you and speak thoughtfully. Can you do that?" Thomas's eyes widened. This was a great honor. He had walked through the palace gardens many times, but never as a guide for the Queen herself. He nodded eagerly. "I will do my best, Your Majesty." The Queen motioned for him to lead the way. Thomas took a deep breath and started walking slowly, his eyes scanning every detail. The gardens were full of colorful flowers, tall trees, and gentle fountains. The morning sunlight made the leaves sparkle, and the air smelled fresh with a mixture of flowers and greenery. Birds sang from the branches, and the sound of water trickling in the fountains added a calm melody to the atmosphere. As they walked, the Queen asked Thomas questions. "Do you know how long these gardens have existed?" she asked. Thomas thought for a moment. "I believe, Your Majesty, that parts of the gardens have been here for more than 200 years. They have been cared for by gardeners who followed traditions passed down for generations." The Queen nodded approvingly. "Very good. And which flower is your favorite here?" Thomas looked carefully at the flowers. There were roses in soft pinks and reds, tulips in bright yellows and purples, and lavender swaying gently in the breeze. "I like the lavender, Your Majesty," he said. "It is simple, but it spreads calm and sweetness across the gardens. It is not the most showy, but it is very important." The Queen smiled. "I see that you pay attention not only to beauty, but also to purpose. That is an important quality, Thomas. In life, it is not always the loudest or brightest thing that matters most. Sometimes it is the quiet and thoughtful things that make the biggest difference." Thomas felt a warm sense of pride. He had not expected to receive such words from the Queen, and he realized that today was more than just a task. It was a lesson in observation, thoughtfulness, and understanding. He led her through the gardens carefully, pointing out small details. A bee buzzing near a flower, the way sunlight fell on a fountain, or the patterns of leaves on a tree. He noticed everything and spoke with respect and clarity. As they reached a quiet corner of the garden, the Queen stopped. This corner had a small stone bench surrounded by tall hedges and colorful flowers. The sunlight created soft patterns on the ground. She sat down and gestured for Thomas to join her. "You did well today, Thomas," the Queen said. "Many guards would have only shown the obvious. They would have rushed through pointing at the largest flowers or the tallest trees, but you noticed the small things. You spoke thoughtfully and respectfully. That shows intelligence, care, and character. Can you tell me why you think observation is important?" Thomas thought carefully. He remembered his training, The Queen's words from yesterday and what he had learned by watching the gardens. Observation, Your Majesty, helps us understand what is really happening. It allows us to notice things that others might miss. It helps us make better decisions and appreciate the value of everything around us. Even small things, if seen carefully, can teach us lessons. The Queen nodded slowly. Exactly. A good guard, a good leader, and even a good person must learn to observe and think before acting. You are learning more than just your duty today, Thomas. You are learning about life itself. Thomas felt a deep sense of respect and inspiration. He realized that being a royal guard was about more than standing tall or following orders. It was about understanding, thinking, and paying attention. He wanted to remember every word, every lesson, and every detail. After a while, they continued walking through the gardens. Thomas showed her the fountain where the royal family sometimes gathered in the evenings, the small bridge over a gentle stream, and the old oak tree that had stood in the garden for centuries. At each spot, he explained the history and significance, speaking slowly and carefully. The Queen listened attentively, asking questions that encouraged him to think and explain more. By mid-morning, the tour ended and they returned to the courtyard. The other guards were watching quietly. Some whispered to each other about how Thomas had been chosen for this special task. Thomas felt a mixture of pride and humility. He knew that he had done well, but he also knew that the lessons he learned today were more valuable than praise or recognition. The Queen paused before entering the palace. She turned to Thomas and said, "Remember, Thomas, that small actions and careful thought are more powerful than any display of strength. You have shown courage, respect, and intelligence. These are qualities that will serve you well, not only here at the palace but throughout your life. Do you understand?" Thomas bowed his head respectfully. "Yes, Your Majesty. I will remember your words and try to live by them." The Queen smiled warmly. "I believe you will. And remember, a kind heart and a clear mind are always the best guide, no matter the challenge." Thomas watched as the Queen entered the palace. He felt a mixture of happiness and determination. The lessons from today were clear, and he was eager to apply them not only in his duties but also in his life. He realized that being a royal guard was about service, observation, and character, and he wanted to be the best he could be. Throughout the day, Thomas could not stop thinking about the lessons the Queen had shared. When he returned to the guardroom, he shared the experience with the other soldiers. They listened with interest and admiration. Some older guards smiled quietly, remembering their own early days and how small lessons had shaped them. Thomas felt a sense of belonging and pride, knowing that he had learned something truly valuable and unique. That evening, Thomas walked through the palace gardens again, this time alone. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and orange. He reflected on the Queen's words, the flowers he had noticed, and the quiet corners of the garden. He understood that observation and thoughtfulness were not just skills. They were ways to see the world clearly, to act wisely, and to respect others. As night fell, the palace lights glowed softly. Thomas returned to his quarters with a sense of calm and purpose. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and perhaps new surprises. But he also knew that he had begun a journey of learning that would last his entire life. And so, the day ended with Thomas feeling more confident, thoughtful, and inspired than ever before. He understood that true strength came not only from standing tall but also from seeing clearly, thinking carefully, and acting with respect and intelligence. The Queen had left him with lessons that would guide him always, and Thomas felt ready to face anything the future might bring. The next morning, Buckingham Palace woke to a crisp and clear day. Thomas arrived at the courtyard earlier than usual, eager to continue his duties. His thoughts still lingered on the lessons the Queen had shared during their walk through the gardens. Observation, thoughtfulness, and respect were now guiding principles in his daily life, and he was determined to apply them carefully. The other guards were already standing in formation, their boots shining and their hats perfectly in place. Some of the older soldiers gave Thomas knowing smiles, a silent acknowledgement of his progress. Thomas returned their smiles politely, but remained focused on the tasks ahead. Today, however, promised to be unusual. Thomas could feel it in the air, though he did not yet know why. As the morning sunlight filtered through the palace gates, a messenger arrived hurriedly, carrying a note sealed with a royal stamp. The guards parted politely to let the messenger through. He approached Thomas and whispered, "This message is for the Queen. She requested it be delivered directly. Thomas carefully took the note and nodded. He had learned to handle royal correspondence with respect. He handed the message to the Queen's aide, who quickly opened it and read aloud. The message informed the Queen that a young boy had wandered near the palace grounds. He seemed lost and frightened, and the local guards had been unable to find his family. The Queen immediately decided to see the boy herself. "Thomas," she said, turning to him with a warm smile, "I would like you to assist me today. We need to welcome this young visitor and ensure he feels safe and comfortable. Can I count on you?" Thomas straightened immediately, feeling honored. "Yes, Your Majesty. I will do my best." The Queen nodded, and the two of them, accompanied by a few palace aides, walked toward the outer gates. The boy was waiting near the garden entrance, looking nervous and uncertain. He could not have been more than 10 or 11 years old, with messy brown hair and wide, curious eyes. He clutched a small bag tightly in his hands as though it contained all his treasures. "Hello," the Queen said gently, crouching slightly to meet the boy at eye level. "You must be tired. What is your name?" The boy hesitated, but then replied softly, "My name is Leo, Your Majesty. I got lost. I wanted to see the gardens, but I did not know the way home." Thomas stepped forward politely. "It is all right, Leo," he said calmly. "You are safe here. I will help you, and we will make sure you are comfortable until your family is found." The Queen smiled at Thomas's kindness. She knew he had a special ability to stay calm and reassuring, even in unusual situations. She motioned for him to guide Leo into the palace gardens. Thomas took the boy's hand gently, and Leo followed him slowly, his steps hesitant but trusting. As they walked, Thomas pointed out small details of the garden to distract and comfort Leo. He showed him the lavender flowers swaying in the morning breeze, the small fountain with water that sparkled in the sunlight, and the little stone bridge over the gentle stream. Leo's eyes began to widen in delight. The gardens were beautiful, and Thomas explained each detail in a simple, friendly way. "You see, Leo," Thomas said kindly, "these gardens have been here for hundreds of years. Every flower, tree, and fountain has a story. If you look closely, you can discover something new every day." Leo smiled shyly. "I like it here," he said softly. "It is quiet and pretty. I was scared at first, but now I feel safe." The Queen watched from a short distance away, her expression gentle and approving. Thomas had done exactly what she had hoped. He had combined observation, calmness, and kindness to turn a stressful situation into a comforting experience. After they walked a short distance, the Queen decided to join them. She greeted Leo warmly and asked him questions about his interests. Leo spoke about his love for animals and flowers. He told the Queen about the small rabbit he had at home and the garden he liked to explore with his friends. Thomas noticed the sparkle in Leo's eyes as he spoke and realized that kindness and attention could help even the most frightened person feel at ease. Suddenly, Thomas noticed a small bird trapped in a bush near the path. Its wing was caught between two branches and it was fluttering frantically. Without hesitation, Thomas moved carefully toward the bird. He spoke softly. "It's all right, little one. I will help you." He gently freed the bird, taking care not to hurt it. Leo watched in amazement. The bird flew a short distance and landed safely on a nearby tree branch. Leo's eyes lit up with admiration. "Wow," he said, "you saved it." Thomas smiled humbly. "Sometimes we notice little things that others may not see. It is important to help whenever we can." The Queen nodded, clearly impressed. "Yes, Thomas. You are teaching a lesson even to our youngest visitor. Attention, care, and kindness are always valuable." After the bird incident, Thomas and Leo continued walking through the garden. They found a small wooden bench surrounded by roses. The Queen invited Leo to sit, and Thomas sat nearby to ensure the boy felt safe. He asked Leo to describe the flowers he liked best and encouraged him to notice small details. Leo picked a small white rose and held it carefully, studying its petals. "You see, Leo," Thomas said gently, "every flower has a story. The white rose shows purity and kindness. It reminds us to be gentle and thoughtful." Leo nodded, his nervousness fading. He began to ask Thomas questions about the garden, the Queen, and even the palace itself. Thomas answered each question patiently, realizing that curiosity was a natural part of learning. Leo's confidence grew with every answer, and soon he was exploring the area with a smile on his face. As the morning passed, the Queen decided it was time to find Leo's family. She called the palace aides and asked them to use the information Leo had provided to contact his parents. While waiting, Thomas continued to keep Leo entertained, showing him the intricate patterns of the palace fountains and the small carved statues hidden among the flower beds. Finally, a carriage arrived carrying Leo's parents. They ran toward him, calling his name with relief and joy. Leo rushed into their arms, smiling brightly. "I was safe," he said proudly. "Thomas helped me, and the Queen was very kind." The Queen approached and spoke gently to Leo's parents. "Your son is safe and well. He has shown courage, and thanks to Thomas, he felt calm and protected during this unusual morning." Leo's parents thanked the Queen and Thomas sincerely. They praised Thomas for his patience, observation, and kind nature. Thomas felt a quiet pride, but he remained humble, knowing that he had only done his duty with care. As the family departed, the Queen turned to Thomas. "Today you have shown that courage is not always about action alone. It is also about patience, observation, and kindness. These qualities will guide you in ways that strength alone cannot." "Remember that, Thomas." Thomas bowed respectfully. "Yes, Your Majesty, I will remember your words." The Queen smiled and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "I am proud of you, Thomas. Keep learning, keep observing, and keep being kind. The world will always need people who can see clearly and act thoughtfully." Thomas watched as the Queen walked away, feeling inspired and determined. He realized that his role as a royal guard was more than standing tall and following orders. It was about noticing what others might miss, acting with care, and helping those who needed guidance. That evening, Thomas walked through the palace gardens alone. The sun was setting, painting the sky in warm shades of orange and gold. He thought about Leo, the bird, and the lessons of the day. He understood that courage, observation, and kindness were connected. True bravery was not just facing danger, but also noticing what needed help and responding with care. As night fell, the palace glowed softly. Thomas returned to his quarters feeling proud, calm, and ready for whatever the next day might bring. He knew that more lessons and surprises awaited him, but he also knew that he had learned something valuable: how to guide, protect, and teach through attention, patience, and thoughtfulness. And so another day at Buckingham Palace ended, leaving Thomas more confident, wiser, and prepared for the challenges and lessons that the future would bring. The morning sun rose gently over Buckingham Palace, casting a warm golden glow across the courtyard. Thomas arrived early, as he always did, feeling a mixture of excitement and responsibility. The past few days had taught him much about observation, patience, and kindness, and today he hoped to apply everything he had learned. The palace was unusually busy that morning. Courtiers, aides, and guards moved swiftly through the halls. Rumors had spread that the Queen would host a special event in the gardens, and Thomas was chosen to assist with preparations. This was an honor, but also a challenge. He understood that the Queen's events were always precise and carefully planned, and every detail mattered. As Thomas prepared in the courtyard, Queen Camilla arrived. Her presence was calm yet commanding, her dress a soft lavender that reflected the morning sunlight. She gave Thomas a gentle nod. "Thomas, I have a special task for you today. It is important that everything runs smoothly. Will you help me?" Thomas straightened immediately. "Yes, Your Majesty. I will do my best," the Queen smiled. "I know you will. Today you will assist in welcoming the guests, ensuring the garden paths are clear and guiding visitors with care. But more importantly, I want you to observe and help with anything unexpected. Can you do that?" Thomas nodded. He had learned that sometimes the smallest details could be the most important. He followed the Queen into the gardens, noticing the delicate arrangements of flowers, the sparkling fountains, and the careful placement of benches. Everything seemed perfect, yet Thomas knew that preparation was only part of the task. Attention and observation were equally crucial. As guests began arriving, Thomas helped guide them to their seats and ensured everyone felt welcome. He noticed small things that others might overlook: a chair slightly uneven, a ribbon on a flower arrangement that needed adjusting, and a young girl who seemed nervous. Thomas approached her gently and offered a kind smile. "Hello," he said softly. "Would you like to sit closer to the fountain? It is a calm place to enjoy the garden." The girl's eyes brightened. "Thank you," she said, and Thomas helped her find a comfortable spot. He realized that small gestures like this could make a big difference. The Queen began greeting the guests, and Thomas observed quietly, ready to assist whenever needed. Suddenly, a commotion near the garden gate caught his attention. A small dog had slipped past its owner and was running freely through the guests, barking excitedly. People laughed, but the dog could accidentally knock over decorations or frighten the children. Thomas moved quickly but carefully. He approached the dog calmly, speaking in a soft voice. "It is all right, little one. Let's find your owner." The dog responded to his gentle tone, allowing Thomas to guide it back toward its worried owner. The guests applauded quietly, impressed by Thomas's calm and thoughtful handling of the situation. The Queen watched, her eyes warm with approval. After the small excitement, Thomas returned to his duties. He continued to guide guests, adjust arrangements, and observe the garden carefully. Every detail mattered, and Thomas's attention to each one ensured the event remained elegant and smooth. The Queen occasionally glanced at him, clearly pleased with his diligence and careful attention. As the event progressed, the Queen decided to take a short walk with Thomas through a secluded part of the gardens. The area was quiet, with soft sunlight filtering through the trees and the gentle sound of a small fountain nearby. The Queen spoke gently. "Thomas, over the past days I have watched you grow. You have learned that courage is not only about facing danger, but also about patience, observation, and kindness. Today you have shown all of these qualities." Thomas felt a warm sense of pride. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he said softly. "Your guidance has taught me much. I will continue to observe, learn, and act with care." The Queen smiled. "I would like to give you a small reward for your service and dedication. Your actions have inspired not only me but everyone here at the palace. Are you ready?" Thomas nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and humility. The Queen led him to a small, quiet courtyard nearby. On a pedestal was a finely crafted medal, simple yet elegant, reflecting the sunlight. The Queen took it and placed it gently around Thomas's neck. "This is a token of appreciation," she said. "It represents observation, courage, and kindness, the qualities you have shown. Wear it with pride, but remember that the true reward is in how you apply these qualities every day." Thomas bowed deeply. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will honor it and continue to serve with care and respect." After the ceremony, Thomas returned to the event with renewed confidence. He continued to assist guests, ensuring that everyone felt welcome and comfortable. He helped an elderly couple find a shaded bench, guided a young boy to watch the fountain safely, and quietly adjusted a flower arrangement that had tilted slightly. Every action was small but combined. They made the event run smoothly and peacefully. The Queen's eyes frequently found Thomas in the crowd. She was clearly pleased not only with his attention to detail, but also with the quiet confidence and care he had shown throughout the day. Thomas realized that being a royal guard was more than standing tall or following orders. It was about making a difference in the lives of others, sometimes through the smallest gestures. As the sun began to set, the event came to an end. Guests were departing, leaving the gardens calm and peaceful once again. Thomas helped ensure that everything was in order, from the placement of chairs to the arrangement of flowers. The palace gardens glowed softly in the fading light, and Thomas felt a sense of accomplishment unlike any he had experienced before. The Queen approached Thomas one last time before leaving the gardens. "Thomas," she said warmly, "you have shown that true strength lies in observation, kindness, and courage. You have learned quickly and applied your lessons thoughtfully. I am proud of you." Thomas bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Your guidance has taught me how to serve with care and attention. I will continue to learn and grow." The Queen smiled, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Remember, Thomas, the qualities you have shown will guide you in every part of life, not just here at the palace. Observe carefully, act wisely, and always be kind. These are the traits of a true leader and a trusted guardian." Thomas watched as the Queen returned to the palace. The gardens were quiet now, with only the soft rustle of leaves and the gentle sound of the fountain. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction and purpose. He realized that his journey at Buckingham Palace had taught him lessons that would last a lifetime. Observation, patience, courage, and kindness were not just duties. They were ways to live with integrity and purpose. That evening, Thomas walked alone through the gardens, reflecting on everything that had happened over the past days. He thought about the Queen's lessons, the young boy he had helped, the bird he had rescued, and the careful observations he had made. Each moment had taught him something important. He understood that service was not only about following rules, but also about noticing what needed attention and acting with care. By the time night fell, Buckingham Palace glowed softly under the stars. Thomas returned to his quarters with a heart full of pride and a mind full of knowledge. He knew that more lessons awaited him in the future, but he also understood that he had grown into a thoughtful, attentive, and courageous guard. As he prepared for sleep, Thomas placed the medal given by the Queen carefully on his dresser. It was a symbol of recognition, but more importantly, it reminded him of the values he had learned. Courage, observation, patience, and kindness would guide him in all his duties and beyond. And so, Buckingham Palace rested quietly under the night sky. Thomas, the young guard who had faced surprising challenges and learned valuable lessons, slept with confidence, ready for whatever the future might bring. His journey had begun as a simple role in the palace, but it had grown into a story of growth, responsibility, and character, a story that would inspire others as much as it had shaped him.